So, herzlich willkommen erstmal zur Fortführung der Reihe Waldwirtschaft international. Wir haben uns ja zuletzt mit dem polnischen Forstverein getroffen, dort uns einmal unser Nachbarland Polen angeguckt. Und heute Abend wollen wir die Reihe fortführen und ins Land der Wälder nach Schweden uns begeben. Schweden hat mit fast 30 Millionen Hektar an Waldfläche die größte Waldfläche in Europa und ist somit sicherlich ein sehr spannender Vortrag heute Abend. Ja, der Deutsche Forstverein engagiert sich, wie gesagt, nicht nur auf nationaler Ebene, sondern auch international. In der Regel tun wir das über unser Forest Experts Program, was durch unsere Mitarbeiterin Sabine Kühling betreut wird, aber auch durch mehrtägige Auslandsexkursionen. Heute wollen wir das Ganze mal ein bisschen kleiner und kompakter machen und Sie heute Abend mit auf eine Reise nach Schweden nehmen und freuen uns, dass Sie alle zusammengekommen sind. Rege Beteiligung haben wir auf alle Fälle schon, wie man an der Teilnehmerzahl heute sieht. Das freut mich sehr. Und ja, dementsprechend fangen wir mal an. Noch kurzer Hinweis, wer Vorträge wie diese gerne unterstützen möchte, wer die Arbeit des Forstvereins unterstützen möchte, ist herzlich eingeladen, Mitglied im Forstverein zu werden, Teil unserer Waldgemeinschaft zu werden. Das kann man ganz einfach auch bei uns auf der Website auf forstverein.de, kostet nicht viel und unterstützt uns wirklich maßgeblich bei dieser Arbeit, die Räume zu finanzieren, die Verwaltung zu übernehmen, alles, was so ansteht bei den Aufgaben. Nun beginnen wir. Will ich einmal kurz ins Englisch wechseln. Because I'm glad to see that we have some guests from our European Forest Network, the umbrella organization of the forest societies in Europe. So not only Johan will join us today as a speaker from the Föreningen Skogen, the Swedish Forest Society, but also I already see Aidas from the Lithuanian Society of Foresters, and also they will join us today Peter from the Scottish, from the Royal Scottish Forest Society. And also I'm allowed to send you the greetings from Martin from the Austrian Forest Society. So we are international today, and I'm glad that we could send these international vibes now to your home. And there's only now left to say to me, to Johan. So jag talar bara lite svenska. Så jag begränsar mig till följande. Hej och välkommen Johan. So you can start your presentation.
Thank you so much. I can't give back that presentation or anything in German. I'm sorry about that, but I try to do this understandable in English. So let's see if I can show you my presentation. Is that okay for you?
Perfect.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. And the international touch of this is fantastic. I think we have to be more international for forestry management in the future. So I think this is an awesome time to talk about Swedish forestry and the management we do. My name is Johan, and I'm the General Secretary of the Swedish Forestry Society. We're an old society. We've been here for 140 years. And we started by, we were founded in 1982. And by that time, there was majority of the forest, country forest, has been devastated by milling, cutting down forests for charcoals and mining and grazing livestock and so forth. And there were a few people that started up to see how to to put more forest in the forest, or to reforest the Swedish landscape. Today we have 7,000 members, and they're all passionate about improving our forest and forestry. And it's we're not a big society, but we're a bit different from the bigger ones. I will try to explain that in a moment. We try to provide information, education, news services. We have a lot of debates, and we try to do a lot of network buildings to spread the word about Swedish forestry and how to manage it. Our society has no political, economical, or trade union connections, so we're completely free from any other thoughts than just trying to make forestry as good as possible. And our vision is an independent organization that can move forestry forward through debate, exchange of ideas, and new knowledge. So that's the main line for our work and what we lean back on when we're trying to navigate the difficulties we're standing in front of. We have a magazine that was first published in 1914. It's called Skogen, and that's the English right translated is the forest. And that's the same for our society. It's called Föreningen Skogen. It's the same translation. We have almost 13,000 readers for the magazine, and we try to provide the best review of developments in the industry, and we've been doing that for the last 100 years. So it's a nice paper, and it's unbound for anything. So we try to just put focus on the forestry. And something that is really important for us is this Nordic Forestry Union, and of course the European Forestry Network that started and is founded. And it's actually my predecessor that started the European Forestry Network, and it started by talking to the Nordic neighbors and seeing if we could do something a little bit bigger, just to just take information between the different countries and see what we can use and see if we can develop in that direction actually. So it's really important for us to be out in the European forestry and try to network us through stuff and learn more about forestry. And what I know about forestry in German, I think it's quite different from what I'm going to show you now, since I gotten to me that you use a lot of what you call it, continuously forestry, and we do clear felling. So that's the big difference, I guess. We can talk more about that later. But so that ends statistics from Sweden. We have a lot of forestry in our land, and this 7% of the land area is forested, and that is 28 million hectares. We have a lot of spruce and a lot of pine. It's quite the same amount. And then we have a little bit of birch and then other broadleaf species as well. We have had we've put a lot of focus on spruce, and that has not been the best way of managing our forestry, since we have it's been the only thing in parts of Sweden, because we have had a lot of moose, roe deers, fallow deer, red deer, and so forth, and that's been the only thing that's possible to grow is spruce. So that's been a bad spiral, we call it. So it's not been perfect, and now we're going over and trying to put the right tree on the right land or ground. So it should be more. We should be able to put more birch and pine in the forestry forward actually. So I hope we're going there, and we are going there. So that's really, really good. We have like 25% of the Swedish forest area are protected, and that's also a lot. And that's something we hear in debates, and we get blamed for not doing anything for the environment. But we have 9% of the forest, Swedish forest, is formally protected. So that's 2.4 million acres that we can't use for forestry or any management. So that's formally protected. And then we have PFC and FSC, you know those organizations, and that's the voluntary protection, and that's up to 5% of our forestry. That's 1.3 million acres. Oh, hectares, sorry, hectares. And then we have the low producing areas, that's lower than 1 cubic meter per hectare and year, and that's also quite a lot. And then we have something called, I'm not going to say a Swedish word because I don't know what it is in English, but generell hänsyn, that's general, something we do in all the areas that we use. When we do clearings or cuttings or whatever, we always have the general generell hänsyn, and that's up to 5% on top of this. So we do a lot of environmental right stuff, and we try to do it long term when we do the management of the forest. And this is a really good way of showing this. From the 1920s and up to now, our forestry has increased, and with that we have also cut down more trees, of course, but we're still growing more trees, and we're getting more trees in Sweden than we ever had, and it's increasing all the time. And the really good thing about that is that we have a high and we have increasing carbon storage, of course, with that curve. We have improved forestry, and it's the improved forestry has made the forest grow better and dense, while the planting and the seeds are getting improved for rejuvenation. So that's just pointing in the right direction all along then. The thing that maybe is not the best, and I think you guys are doing it better than, is for the biology, since we're having one aged areas. We don't have the best of the biologic in the ground. That's the hardest part for us to do, and we're trying to make it look like the fire. You had fire in the forest like every 50 years before, and with the fires came a lot of dead wood and really good stuff for biologisk mångfald, and that's the thing we're trying to do with our forest. We're trying to make it look like that, but it's hard, and but we're getting there, and we're getting better and better and better at it. So it's getting better. But I think the continuity forestry and management is better at just the biology and the thing with that. So we have a lot of things to learn and try to do better here in Sweden with that. The ownership of the Swedish forestry is a lot of private owners. Almost 50% of the forest in Sweden is privately owned, and we have the state has about 80%, private owned limited companies at 24%. In Sweden, we're not allowed to start limited companies and own forestry in that. So it has to be forest that already has that kind of ownership do something with it, and you can't increase it either. It's really difficult to do that. So it's often privately owned forestry. Otherwise, it's special managed limited companies. So that's the biggest parts, and the Swedish state with Sveaskog has a lot of forestry as well, and that's like 12% of the forestry. We have 311,479. That's a round number as for the ownership for the private owners in Sweden at 2021. And we have about 40% of the forest is owned by women and 60% by men, and of course both is in that as well. The management methods we use in Sweden is often even-age forestry, as I told you. So we have like spruce, and we can have two heights of it. Of course, you can have birch to start up with. You can plant spruce under it and get it up. But often we just do clear fellings, and then we put plants in the ground and we breed them up to when it's time to clear them again. So it's the most common is even-aged forestry, and that's also the most for us the most economically best way to do it, and we have all the law and stuff just goes for that as well. So we have that's the way we have used our forestry up until now. The size of the stock or the areas we use is from 0.3 hectares and up to a couple of hundreds. The biggest areas now 100 and up. That is really rare, and we don't do that big fellings nowadays, or clear fellings. It's mainly like a couple of hectares or around there. That's the most common, or smaller than. And the big plus about this, the advantage is it's economically, it's well proven, and all the studies are going that this is the best way for us to do this. Just the other day, yesterday, I saw a research report that's going for that to store the most carbon. It's the best way for us is to manage our forest, not like EU says to stop cutting it down, since the growing forest is the best for carbon. This is going to be interesting. We have two different reports going for the same direction now, and it's just around Christmas now it's going to be released, so we can read about it a bit more and see what happens then. The disadvantages of this is, of course, as I told you before, it's the problem with the biology, well, we're not perfect, that's for sure, but we're getting there. When we're talking about the other thing, it's the biodiversity is of course something that we're trying to put a lot of focus on. But nowadays, and with EU, it's the biggest one is carbon dioxide, and it's for us it's growing forestry and manages it. That's the best way of doing this. And the funny thing about this is this has been a national. Forestry has always been something that every nation is allowed to manage in their own way. But since the EU is saying that we can't do that because it affects the environment, the climate in such a bad way, And now those two reports that came out is saying the opposite. So now it's going to be really interesting to see what the EU and the Parliament over there says about this, and the way they're explaining why they should manage our forestry or tell us how to manage it. So this is going to be a really interesting time, I guess. So even-aged forestry, that's Sweden. Uneven-aged forestry is something we're starting to manage a little bit, and I guess that's something you guys are more are really good at and using for your forestry in the main. So this is two different ways of doing it, and we're going more on the uneven-aged forestry to really manage the biodiversity on a better scale. I told you before that we are a really small society, and we are, but we have the advantage of not being part of any influences like economics or anything like that, so we're unbound. The other big ones, we have three really big ones. That's Södra, Mellanskog, and Norra Skog. They're really big ones, associations, and they together have a lot of members, and they do forestry. They do it in the same context as us, but they have the profit in focus. So they help landowners and forest owners to manage their forest, but they also buy forest, and they have a economical lead in their work so far. And they have industries as well. Some of them are really big industries, and of course, you sell forestry to Södra, Mellanskog, and Norra Skog, and you get the price for it, of course. And then you have, if the industry and all of it goes well, you also get another portion of money when they summon up the year. And the thing is, when you have money in the bank or at those associations, you also get money every year for as long as you have your amount of money at their association. So it's something we forget to tell our forest owners, that it's a really lucrative way of doing business as well. Yeah. Let's see how much I forget or misses. I think we're good. And then we have with forestry, we have a social discussion, of course. We have EU politics, and the thing is, EU, as I told you before, is trying to rule not only our forestry, but your forestry and every other forestry management in Europe, and they're taking the climate as a way of doing that. With those numbers we're now getting from the research institute, it's not as easy to see the argument so far. So I think it's going to be a change. I hope it's going to be some sort of change and a bit of a different acting from EU, because I don't think we can afford a quick fix with stop using forestry for whatever it's used for. We can use concrete, we can use steel and stuff like that, of course, for building, but it's still not as good environmentally as forestry is. So I don't see the long-term effects of what they're telling us. I just see the short term. Of course, we're going to store more carbon if we don't cut down our forestry, but that's a really short term of looking at stuff. Then we have we have something. I don't know if you have that. I'll ask you, Malte, that allemansrätten, the right of public access. Do you have that in Germany?
Yes, a little bit. So, but not in these big dimensions like in Sweden. So everyone is allowed to get in the forests and take also some stuff out of it, but only like a little just for their own use. But they aren't allowed to sleep in the forest and things like that.
Okay, we have a quite of a big right of public access. Anyone can go into any forest and pick berries and do stuff, but you can't destroy anything, and you can't cut down forest and stuff like that. But that is something that is always on the agenda, talking about, because you have cycles, you have horses, you have everything, and everyone thinks that you can use everyone else forestry for anything, and that's not completely true, because you can't damage anything. So you have to be careful, of course, but that's always something we're talking about. So that is something we're of course debating and talking about. And the ownership, of course, is the same with that. We're not always, but we're talking about what are you able to use, what can you use your forestry for? And someone says, yeah, I would like to have, I have a lot of forestry. I would like to have a lot of animals in my forestry. I would like to have a lot of moose. I would like to have red deer, fallow deer, mufflon, roe deers, everything. I would like, and a lot of it. And then the people beside you is always going to have the argument: is this actually something that you should do? It affects us, and so forth. So that's something we discuss in various time of the year, and before the hunting season starts, it's always a debate like for this. Adaptation throughout the climate change. We have a warmer climate. We have the science, and how does this affect us, and what are we doing with it? Increased growth, increased carbon sequestration. That's a hard word for me, but it's of course, with the warmer climate, we get more forest, and it grows like never before, and we also have better material to put in the ground that actually grows a lot faster than it did like 40 years ago or 30 years ago, or even less. So we're getting more forest. We're getting more forest. Increased regression, mainly wildfire and bark beetle, and that is of course the negative effects of decreasing in carbon sequestration, and that's something we have to be able to tackle in and how to do it. For us, it's about talking a lot. We're talking a lot about going from spruces to pine or birch or mixed trees, and that's of course better for wildfire and for bark beetle in general. And the science is in Sweden focused on using forestry for other stuff than the bad stuff. We're using forestry for clothes. We're using forestry for everything. And the problem might be that we don't have enough forest for the science to do what it should do. And we have to have forestry for building materials, and we have to have it for diapers or paper, and we have to have it. We have to have forest for everything, and of course for replacing fossil material as well. Then. And that's we're getting there, and I think it's really fun seeing the development that's happening in the research area as well, and the science is taking leaps like never before. So it's really interesting. We're living in an interesting time, I guess. Sustainable carbon sequestration throughout maintained sustainability forest management is the way to do it. So this is a bit more numbers. Carbon sequestration, growing forest and products from the forest binds and store 46 m-tons carbon a year. Fossil reduction, products from the forest replace fossil-based with 52 tons. I think it's megaton, but I'm not sure about it's a lot of tons. And then you have the fossil emission from industrial processes, transported inputs. That's of course a negative number, but it still adds up really, really good for forestry and for Swedish forestry as well. So this is something we're trying to explain, but it's hard to see it when we're talking about the climate change and we should not cut down the forest because we're storing carbon in it and so forth. And this is hard, but we're getting there. And now with the new reports, of course. Another really important thing for Sweden and forestry is that the amount of the products is about 10% of the Sweden total merchandise export and 3% of the total merchandise imports. It makes a major contribute to Sweden trade balance. So without this, it would be not as easy being Swedish. Of Swedish industry total employment, export turnover and value added, the forest industry accounts for 10 to 13%. I don't really know what we should do if we didn't have this, and if we're getting if EU tells us we're not supposed to cut down our forestry or reduce it with like 30-40%, this is going to be a terrible effect on a lot of on our wealth, of course. So you have probably heard that bioenergy, that's the bad stuff nowadays when EU is telling us we can't use forestry for this. And there, I've heard the argument that Sweden cuts down forestry just to fire it up or use it for bioenergy, but this is not quite the thing that's happening. We have 10%, and that's the thing that stays in the forest. Otherwise, that's used for bioenergy and the power plants and electricity and warmth. And that is, of course, an important thing if we're doing the energy transmission and the energy change in the entire EU, of course. So we can't just not see that, but we can't. Well, we're not. We think EU is trying to make us not use that important stuff from the forest. 45% of what we cut down goes for the lumber mills, the building materials. This is in Swedish, but I think you can see by the pictures where we're going with this. So the sawmills is going for 45% of the it's getting 45% of it. Another 45% goes for the paper mills and stuff like that, and also for warmth and every other thing that's the byproducts of everything, of course. So 10% bioenergy for power plants and heating and electricity. 45% goes for the sawmills, and 45% goes for the paper mills and that. So everything else you heard is wrong. This is how we split the forestry in Sweden. I think someone might have another opinion about this, of course, and you're allowed to have that. So I'm just radiating a bit. Sawn wood go for houses, interior, bridges, pulp, paper, cardboard, packaging. Biorefineries products go for biofuel, viscose, lignin, and then we have the bioenergy, of course. And we have a really small amount for export, but we still have that, but not round wood. I don't know if you call it that, but round wood. That we don't export much of that. We export it when it's refined. It's planks and stuff like that instead. So that's something we're a bit bigger on, of course. Thank you. This is my last word. The constant challenge and developments are what make Swedish forestry so interesting. We put large resources into research. There is a great spirit of constantly striving forward to develop the most sustainable way for both people and the environment. We fight to break norms and make the forestry an attractive workplace for everyone to apply for. We have such great faith in the future and the industry. Thank you very much.
We have to say thank you to you, Johan. So very, very great presentation where everyone get a lot of information. And now we can start with some questions and so on to get deeper in the forests of Sweden and the way how you use it. I think it was a good example for our international work and your international work also that we are working together. So not only you are affected by the European Union and so on, so we all are sitting on the same conditions and have different ways to manage it, different ideas, and if we work together, a union, a big European Union, I think we can do also a lot of good things. So just a little thing before we start with the questions, I forgot to start to tell this wasn't the last presentation. So we already have the next date for the next presentation about Indonesia at the 23rd of January around 19 or 7 p.m. So everyone is invited to join us there. And now we can start with some questions, I think. So please feel free to speak or just raise your hand with the button on the bottom. So Martin Felsen. Wir können dich hören.
Okay. Hey, Johan, thanks for your presentation. I was wondering about the carbon issue. Is there already an initiative in Sweden that develops a carbon standard for Swedish forests in order to account and monitor for carbon certificates from your forests and so to be able to sell them to evolving carbon markets? Thanks.
No, We have a few companies that started to develop and try to do something about this in economically, but it's really small, and it's just a few ones that started. So you can't say it's a market for it yet, but we're talking about it and we're getting there. When we're talking about looking at the carbon storage and stuff like that, we have the institutes are doing research in how to measure it and how much it is and so forth. And I guess that's something that has to be some sort of a base for a new economic as well.
All right, thank you.
So next is Anders Fransen.
Anders Fransen from Denmark. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. And I can certainly see that even though Sweden and Denmark are very different in size and in terms of forestry and wood production, we face exactly similar problems. One issue that we also have in Denmark in these years, due to our limited land area, the discussion on protection of biodiversity is evidently very much on the political agenda in Denmark. And forgive me, I had to pick up a phone during your presentation, but I don't think you touched upon the issue of biodiversity credits. Is that something you're looking into in Sweden? I think I read somewhere that you have one or two NGOs trying to sell them in sort of a similar way to carbon credits. And yeah, I was just curious, is that a market going forward in Sweden or?
That's a really good question. It's the exact same as with the carbon credits. It's the same talk about it, and we're starting. A few companies have started to make money of it and talk about it and try to sell it and so forth. But it's not a big thing yet. But it's getting there, and it's a lot of talking about it. So far so good. But we don't have. No one knows how much money is it worth, and how much should you pay or not pay and get and so forth. And the other thing that a lot of companies are afraid of is greenwashing, of course. So that's also something that's you have to have the right way to manage this before it's going to grow big, since everyone's afraid of greenwashing.
So are there further questions? Raise your hand or open your microphone. You can also text your question in the chat, then we will speak about it. There's no, there's news from Scotland. So Peter, feel free to speak.
And thank you, Johan, for a very nice presentation of Swedish forests. Although I'm representing Scotland, I'm Danish, but I can say to you that I had forest in Sweden also, a small one with a house many years ago. The one thing I would like to ask you is that you said in your presentation that it was not good that spruce, Norway spruce, rødgran, whatever you call it, was 40%. It should be less. And the pine, the Pinus sylvestris in Sweden, the vanlig tall, I think it's called, should be more. Why so? The reason I'm asking is that in the United Kingdom, the spruce, any spruce, not only the Norway spruce, but any spruce is regarded as an invasive species. And of course, in Scotland, the main crop is Sitka spruce. Because there was never, ever natural spruce in the United Kingdom. They are all imported, whatever the kind they are. So why is it that Sweden has a negative view to spruce?
I don't I don't think we have a negative look at it. The problem is that we have put spruce on every land and everywhere because of the problem with the moose and deers and stuff like that. So that's, I don't think we look badly at it, but we put it everywhere, and we put it where pine or any other kind of forestry would grow better. So and since we do one-age forestry as well, if you get problem with bark beetle, it just takes out the entire area. So that's the problem. We don't have it. We should have put pine where pine should grow, and we should have put spruce where spruce should go. So we don't look badly on it, but we've put it where it shouldn't grow. I think that's a better way of putting it.
So that means that there's no kind of, it's more a question of the ground, the soil,
Yes.
and the environment in general than it is a question that, like in Scotland, many environmental organizations, they want spruce away from Scotland, completely, 100% away, which is of course a commercial disaster for the whole business. That is not the case in Sweden.
No. No, right tree on the right ground and soil, and that's the main important stuff. And so we don't look down on spruce. It's a really important species for us.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Peter.
That's quite interesting. Johan, we talked at the start about how many people will join us. So before the Polish presentation, we had around 80. And always I was counting, and we had 104. So we get to our target of 100 people. So very glad about that. I've got a question. You told about the forest owner associations and that they have a lot of members. So do you have a lot of small private owners who only have a few hectares, or is it depends it on the people?
You mean the associations or our society?
No, the forest owner. So does he have, like, in the middle, like 5 hectares of forest? So there are a lot of forest owners in Sweden, or do they have like 100, 200 or more hectares?
Now the main land or forest in Sweden owned is I think 30 hectares. So that's the main one, and I think we gather all of them from the really big ones to the small ones, and it doesn't have I don't think you have a segment for anyone. We're getting all of them.
Yes, because what was quite interesting to see the structure, for example, from Södra,
Yes.
to get together these forest owners, and not only to sell together their wood like we would do in Germany, to also work with the wood and sell the product at the end to get more out of it.
I didn't get that question.
Yeah, it just was like interesting for us. So in Germany, there are not so many forest owner associations that do more than selling their wood together. So I think Wälder is doing more there. Do you have some industry in their organization?
Yes, Södra have quite big industries in their organization, and they're taking the forest for that, of course, but they don't. You trade with Södra, just you. So you don't gather a community of people in an area or something like that, because that doesn't work, or well, it would work maybe, but it doesn't work like that today. So you just sell it to Södra, and your neighbor might also be a member at Södra, but they don't have any connection like that, other than when something happens, like the bark beetles or a big fire or anything. Then you join up for a bigger area for helping each other and stuff like that. But otherwise, it's just you against Södra, or you can use any other industry or forest buying organization to sell your wood to.
Yes. Or there's a question in the chat. So they will ask, your last slide says that 100% of the tree is used in one way or the other. In Germany, we calculate that about 20% of the tree will stay in the forest, either by intention because of ecological reasons, or by chance as loss during harvest, bark, branches, trim leaves, stumps, and so on. How much in percentages of the wood will remain in the forest? So if you cut down a tree.
That's the first thing I talked about when I talked about generell hänsyn. The Swedish word I didn't get in. I don't know what that is in English, but that's something we leave in the forest in every cutting and every thinning we do, and that's around 5 to 8% of the stand.
Okay.
And that
like
might be big ones that stands forever, or it might just be a group of trees that should be there, and it's a line against the lake or something like that. But that's the general. We do it all stands or all cuttings or thinnings.
Okay, I think the question is more on the one tree. So if you cut one tree, does it get 100% out of the forest, or do you like cut the top and the bottom and let some parts of it in the forest?
That's a really hard question to answer, because usually you just take the round piece, of course. That's what get planks and stuff like that, or you get tissues or whatever of it. But then you have the branches and the top and stuff like that. And then we usually take that out to use for heating and stuff like that. So we usually take that out if it's not too wet, because if it's wet, the ground is not bearing a lot. You just use that to drive on and stuff like that. So it's hard to say a percentage, but the general stuff we always use is 5 to 8% of the stand. So that might be in general maybe the same. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't know exactly.
Perfect. Yeah, but I think the question is was good. So you're using a little bit more, I think, than we are using mostly. But yeah, there's another question. Oh, there are 2, 3, 4. Oh, there are a lot of questions. So we start with the first question from Philip. Which species are psychologically and ecologically present in Sweden beside of spruce, pine, birch, in the large amount of the country, and beech in the south of the country?
The question is about where we have the species. Is that correct? In what part of the country?
Yes, I think about the different. Yes, a bit. Yes.
We have all the species, the 3 common species. We have pine, spruce, and birch. We have that in the entire country, and then we have. You can say that we have in the higher grounds we have pine, more pine, and then we have the lower grounds and the better growing parts we have spruce, and then we have birch all over. We have two sorts of birch, and it grows everywhere, even in the almost on top of the tree line, above the tree line, but you have bushes, birch bushes more there. So that's the I don't know if that's the answer to the question, but
Yeah, I think that was the answer to the question. And the next is also interesting. So if you want to mix the tree species in the stand, which are the most important tree species you mix with spruce?
With spruce, birch.
Yes.
I think birch is the thing you use mostly because it's so common as well then. But you can also mix spruce and pine, of course, but you usually use spruce on top. You get spruce. Spruce comes quickly and it grows quickly, and then you put the pine the birch grows quickly, and you put the spruce underneath it. So it's you have a high stand of birch, and then you get the spruce underneath it to grow it, and that's really good for both the spruce and the birch.
Interesting. So now there's a question that's with 100% every presentation will come. How's the hunting system in Sweden? So is it based on the first owner? Is it based on hunting associations? And like how to get an elk?
This is a really funny question. I've been the head chief of the hunting areas in one part of Sweden for a lot of years. So this been my profession, and this is something I really enjoy, of course. You have to have to easily hunt in Sweden. You have to be a landowner. If you're a landowner, you can hunt. You can hunt on almost super small portions of land. So if you're a landowner, you can hunt. That's that's almost completely true. If you're not a landowner, you have to hire land from someone to pay someone to be able to hunt there. And if you that's the common for the entire country. And then when you get up at where I'm born in Värmland, in the middle of Sweden, or the middle south of Sweden, south middle Sweden, you get you have areas that's called VVO, also viltvårdsområden, also that's wildlife areas. And they're connected, so you can hunt on every land connected to that VVO. So if I'm connected to six VVO, and then I can hunt on every land in that VVO. So I get like 30,000 hectares to hunt on, and I can do that whenever I want. But the elk is not joined in that agreement, because elk is something you hunt together. So that's out of the question. You can't hunt elk otherwise than in the hunting season for elk and with other people for hunting.
I think
that's buy forest in Sweden, and you can hunt.
So set us some prices.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, but you also answered a lot of questions, I think, from Philip. So we look like the next question. I'm just reading this. Okay. So some groups in Germany are stating that using wood as fuel wood, for example, for heating, is not ecologically friendly because a lot of fine dust is produced, which may cause health problems. What are you answering these groups? Is this problem not seen as a big problem in Sweden?
No, that's not a big problem or issue in Sweden. The biggest issue is, of course, the taking forestry to use for energy, like it's in any country of Europe, of course, but and EU's look at it. So that's the same. But just using forest for heating your own is not, has not been a problem. It's in the cities. You have a discussion in cities sometimes, but it's a really small problem. And we used wood for firing up houses for always. So I never heard that argument actually.
Yeah, that's quite different. In Germany, we have this discussion about the whole area. Just because if you can't only say it's not illegal or it's not legal in the cities, that's a little bit different here, but quite interesting. So we see what will happen there. So one question from me: you told about that the forestry in Sweden is a big part of the economy of Sweden. So you have a good chance to reach your politicians, to get in there in contact and that they support your work?
Yes, they do, and we have a lot of discussions with politicians, with the politicians. We have different stuff we do from our society. We have the forest in the what you call it, Peter, help me. What's the ruling? What you call it? The guys that's ruling the parliament. We have the forest in the parliament. We have a day that when we meet our parliament's participants and we talk forestry and we see what they want to do, and we have we gathered them and our members. But now we have we're talking to almost every of the politicians because we have a new government and stuff like that. So now we're using our force of and possibility to talk to them and explain forestry and the importance of doing right decisions. But right now the Swedish politicians are really, it's not an issue now. It's more of EU and what's going to happen there, and how are we going to manage the thing that comes from EU and implement that in Sweden. So that's the bigger issue right now than just the nation's questions. Did that make sense?
Oh, yes, I think so. So one further question to this topic. You told about the European Union, and how do you try to impact the European Union? So like in Germany, we have the umbrella organization of the German forestry sector, the German Forestry Council, which has a group for the European politics, where we met, where we discussed topics, and where we do some papers also for the European Union politicians. So do you have something like that, or do you try to get in contact otherwise?
We have a lot of people in EU. We have the forest owners. We have the industry, the forest industries. We have a umbrella company called the Forest Industries, and they gather all the industries in Sweden almost, and they have people in EU all the time talking and trying to make them to make the right decisions, of course. And then we have single companies. That's actually Stora Enso for once is a big company right now, and they've seen the danger of what EU is trying to do. So they have people there 24/7 as well for making their point made. And then we have something new in Sweden right now, and that's you've heard of Wallenberg? It's a really a mighty family that has a lot of stuff going on in Sweden with everything. They have a big ownership in Stora Enso. They own Kopparfors Skogar, and they own a lot of companies and stuff like that. And they're actually starting to see how important the forestry is. They have never touched the company's work before, but now the family company is actually trying to make a stand in how important forestry is, and this is huge for us in Sweden. This is I don't know that's ever happened before. So that is really big, and it's important, and it's really good for forestry to have that backup from them. So that's
Martin. Martin Felsen, feel free to speak.
Okay, sorry, I was still muted. I already put my question out once again. So Johan, it's interesting about the Wallenberg family to hear about this increased interest. So is it general observation that interest in Swedish forests are increasing? Is the demand increasing? Are the prices increasing? Or what do you see there? Thank you.
Unfortunately, our price tag for the forest owners is still really bad. I think we have the lowest price in entire Europe. So nothing is happening, at least not really fast, but it's climbing a little bit, and the thing that's climbing a bit now is the firewood. So it's getting there, and we get the fuel part of the forest is taking a bit of a leap, and I guess that's gonna push everything up, since that's the bottom of everything. So I think everything is going to raise a little bit, but we're not seeing a big. But the thing that's getting there is everyone is talking about forestry and forest management, and I think that's the biggest change I've seen right now. It's not us and the big companies, but everyone is talking about it right now, and it's a bit divided. So the forest owners are now, some of them are ashamed of owning forest because the debate is so hot and so forth. So that's a problem, but everyone is talking about forestry, and it's fun.
Yeah, that's the same here. It's really interesting that suddenly the public is having an opinion. We have this famous magazine Geo that took up this theme, and it's shaking up the forestry scene here, I guess.
Yeah.
And same observation over here. Thank you.
Also, there is another question from Daniela.
Yes, hello. I have two questions. I think I missed some details about the sheet where you explained about the protected forest area in Sweden, because I remember that you said something about 25% is protected, but I think you said something about FSC and PFC. So the first question is, how much percent is formally protected, like set aside, really not touched anymore at all? And the other question is, we are or maybe you answer, you answer first this one, and then I ask the second one.
Yeah, I just scribbling with my papers here. The formal protected areas are 9%.
Okay. Thank you. And the other question is, like in the forest administration, we are talking a lot right now about how to face climate change and how many tree species we need to have a good mix in each stand. And like where I am working, we are talking about like 3 or 4 tree species to have in each stand. Like this would be the ideal. But as I understood, in Sweden, you are or you only have one species at all in a stand, or you talked about like mixing spruce with birch, or mixing spruce with pine. So you don't still have so much problems, I guess. So in Germany, for example, we see dying the spruce in the lower parts of Germany. It has really accelerated during the last 3 or 4 years. So is this discussion already urgent in Sweden? Do you discuss like you need more tree species in each stand?
Yeah, we're always talking about the diversity and of species in our stands, but it's not. I kind of skipped 1 or 2 parts in that, but we have spruce, we have pine, we have birch, and then we have other species as well, and we have almost always other species in a stand. We have bearing trees, we have stuff like that. So we have different trees in a stand. So that's of course it's like that. We have a lot of them, but the main trees and the ones we use for other stuff is more like pine, spruce, and birch. We try to keep the other ones standing, so we keep the biodiversity on a really good level as well. So we try not to cut them down or stuff like that. We try to make them better and try to thrive instead.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And now we have 2 questions left. So I would say we take these questions and then you have it done. The second last question: are the few wolves in Sweden curse or a blessing in regard of the browsing pressure by deer on the forest regeneration?
Oi. Take that one more time. Take the question one more time, please.
Are the wolves in Sweden curse or blessing in regard of the browsing pressure by deer or forest regeneration? So do they support the forest regeneration, or do they work against it in contact with the deer?
I was laughing because this is not an easy question to answer in Sweden. If we just look at the high pressure of deers, moose and stuff like that, of course they lower that to a minimum, or to a size that's reasonable. But the problem is the wolves are not in the parts of Sweden that's the biggest problem. So the wolves are, well, they're not a blessing. I don't know. I don't think that. I don't know. There's a blessing in any context, because it's always debating it. Always, we're always debating it, and it's not like we're trying to get forward. We're just trying to get it right. If I like wolves, I try to get it right. If I hate them, I like to get it right. So it doesn't work that well. Yeah. So
there's not a clear answer to this question.
Nah, and wolf is not. They're not a blessing for the high tribes of red deer or roe deer or mooses, because they're in the wrong countryside. The biggest problem with that is more south, and you don't have that many wolves there yet. They're getting now more south, of course, but so yeah, they're not a solution for anything.
Okay. And last question. How do you see the role of continuous cover management in the future? Where do you see the difficulties and opportunities? Especially in Northland, the conditions may not prove ideal.
Right now I can't see the role of continuous cover management as especially big in Sweden. We don't have anything to manage that in right now. You've done an extremely short turn from something to what you have today in Germany, and that is amazing and awesome in any context, but I can't see that in Sweden, because we have all of our industry, our machines, our everything is pointing in the other direction right now. So I don't see it a short term going that direction at all. Small areas in small parts in Sweden, but not in the greater management. No.
During your presentation, I've done a small research. So in Germany, we have around 30,000 foresters, and with just 1/3 of the forested area, like Sweden. So Sweden has 10 million inhabitants and 3 times more forest than Germany. I think it's also hard to do this management on the whole area in the intensity like in Germany.
Yeah, I think so as well, and it's not suitable for all the land in northern Sweden as well. So it's I don't think that's to have that everywhere is not an option, but to have it somewhere, of course, but not in the greater context.
Yeah, but I think, Roland, you get the biodiversity also in focus to your work, and I think everyone will watch what will happen in Sweden, in Germany, and so on, and hopefully we can stay in contact to
Of course.
speak about our ideas, our plans, and if I'm with my Swedish will be better in a few days, I'll also start reading the new slogan I already got. So your magazine also found his way to Germany. So very big thanks to you. You have done a great presentation. We recorded it, and if it works, we will upload it for everyone. And was a great evening. Thank you very much, and I hope you also liked the presentation and meeting all the people.
It was really fun, and I love all the questions. I've been to a few of these, and the questions is the most fun part of the presentation. So
it's always
thank you
interesting
very much for having me.
It's always interesting in the details we get. So thank you. Have a great evening, and stay safe, stay healthy, and let's work together for our forests.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.